Hi everyone, covering this war, this airstrike against Syria now that apparently happened on Saturday. It was announced I think on Thursday. Theresa May failed to consult Parliament, and instead she decided to go ahead with these strikes on the strength of what? Of what information? Oh, apparently President Assad has been using chemical weapons against the rebels, the ISIS rebels in Syria. He's been using chemical weapons against his own people. That is the charge against President Assad, and apparently that means Britain, to protect the people of Syria, can just decide to go and launch military strikes on buildings they claim are producing chemical weapons. Now here we have Jeremy Corbyn. Please, Jeremy Corbyn, stop being Mr. Wishy-washy. Please, all the MPs of the opposition, no matter regardless of which party you're with, if you're sitting on the benches of the opposition, and even members of the Tory party itself, to the sane and compassionate human beings that surely must exist within the ranks of their MPs on the benches of the government, you need now to start asking some serious questions, because Theresa May is obviously suffering from severe mental health problems, or she's just outright evil. She's totally controlled by external forces that really have no allegiance to Britain or the British people, or in fact any people of any land other than the New World Order criminal cabal, which, you know, they are installing on our planet into power today. So okay, Jeremy Corbyn questions Syria airstrikes, whether or not they're they're legally questionable. They're not legally questionable, Jeremy Corbyn. Stop being, you know, these are not the times for being nicey-nicey, okay? Mincing with our words. Let's just be honest and call them for what they are. They are a criminal terrorist act committed by a government that has formed an alliance with a paramilitary extremist terrorist organisation, okay? And we have the evidence. So here we are. The Tories are forming a coalition with the party backed by terrorists. The UDA is a violent loyalist paramilitary group which is still active today. Just weeks ago, it murdered a man in broad daylight in Northern Ireland. He was shot dead in a Sainsbury's car park in front of horrified shoppers and his 3-year-old son. Okay, now this is from The Independent. So, you know, usually, yes, they're part of the media thing, but at the end of the day, you know, we do get some truth through the press, and this is a very, very serious issue when you've got a government, I've explained it before, who are backed by a loyalist paramilitary group, and they are taking actions on the strength of hearsay, okay, and no evidence. So we've got this government has already expelled Russian diplomats, has embarked on a Cold War against Russia, is even threatening military action against Russia, building its troops up on the Ukraine border, is now really fighting against Russia, who was standing by Assad in removing the ISIS terrorists from Syria, and now they are now launching attacks against Assad on the strength of a pack of lies again, okay, because it has been known for a very long time that ISIS are the ones that are using the chemical weapons. Now this is from May 17th 2017, okay, very, very clearly, ISIS creating chemical weapons cell in new de facto capital, US officials say. This is from CNN in 2017. US intelligence believes ISIS is bringing together all of its experts on chemical weapons from Iraq and Syria into a new chemical weapons cell, according to a US official. The cell is comprised of chemical weapons specialists from Iraq and Syria who have not previously worked together, the official added. The new unit is being set up in an ISIS-controlled area in Syria within the Euphrates River Valley between Mayadin, Syria, and the town of Al-Qaim, just across the Iraqi border. The location has sparked a good deal of interest on the part of US military intelligence. One US defence official told CNN that thousands of ISIS operatives and sympathisers may be in the area, and that ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi could also be in hiding somewhere nearby. The area is now considered the de facto capital of ISIS, with Raqqa under such military pressure from the coalition and such local forces, the officials said. Okay, so, you know, we know that after Britain and America and other countries were persuaded to form this coalition and invade Iraq on the strength that it had weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, and we get in there and we find that there are no chemical weapons, but now ISIS have been installed, this extremist group, and they are making chemical weapons in Iraq, and they are using those weapons in Syria. And then, you know, ISIS, which apparently are just, you know, people, crazed fanatics who get together and, you know, get trained in Pakistan, somehow get hold of these weapons from where we don't know. Well, we do actually, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know, apparently they've got chemical weapons experts working with them. So who's trained these chemical weapons experts to the degree that they're able to make chemical weapons in Iraq and use them in places like Syria? So, you know, let's not just take CNN's word for it. Here we have the New York Times. ISIS used chemical weapons at least 52 times in Syria and Iraq, report says. This is from November the 21st, 2016. The Islamic State has used chemical weapons including chlorine and sulfur mustard agents at least 52 times on the battlefield in Syria and Iraq since it swept into power in 2014, according to a new independent analysis. More than 1/3 of those chemical attacks have come in and around Mosul, the Islamic State stronghold in northern Iraq, according to the assessment by the IHS Conflict Monitor, a London-based intelligence collection and analysis service. The IHS conclusions, which are based on local news reports, social media and Islamic State propaganda, mark the broadest compilation of chemical attacks in the conflict. American and Iraq military officials have expressed growing alarm over the prospect of additional chemical attacks as the Allies press to regain both Mosul and Raqqa, the Islamic State capital in Syria. Okay, so this is November 2016. Then we have this from the New York Post, again May 17, 2017, chemical weapons in Syria. Okay, apparently they're gathering all of their chemical weapons specialists from across the Middle East and bringing them to their new de facto capital in the Euphrates River Valley. So, you know, again, chemical weapons in Mosul. The International Committee of the Red Cross said in a statement that about 12 people, including women and children, would be treated for possible exposure to chemical weapons in a hospital in Erbil. And this is again March 6, 2017. They've been exposed to mustard agent. Iraqi authorities have said that ISIS was behind the attack. The use of the chemical weapons is a war crime. It is a serious threat to both civilians and combatants. So here we go. This is the evidence, okay? This is the evidence. Sorry, that's something I'm going to sign now. So, again, 3rd of March 2017, 12 civilians have been injured in Mosul, what appears to be the first chemical weapons attack in the battle for the IS stronghold, and said the substance was still unknown. The injuries were apparently caused in 2 separate incidents when mortar fire hit houses in East Mosul and victims complained of a foul smell chemical. Is Al-Qaeda and how Jihad uses chemical weapons. Okay? Iraqi town hit by IS chemical attack. US official IS is making chemical arms. Okay? Okay? Now the truth emerges. Okay, look at the date. 3rd of June 2015. Now the truth emerges. How the US fueled the rise of ISIS in Syria and Iraq. We have to accept the evidence. The evidence is there. I've shown it in previous videos in my Q Analytica. I've shown evidence that shows without doubt that Western intelligences have been recruiting funding, training and arming this ISIS group, and they are using them like a monster to subjugate the mass of the Middle Eastern people, who were, the vast majority of them were not extremists. You know, how many Christians really would, you know, support, say, an organisation like the Ku Klux Klan with its extremist interpretation of Christianity, or, you know, the people of the Spanish Inquisition? Would we really call these people Christians? They are extremist mad people. And the thing is that when extremist mad people get hold of anything, they turn it into something evil. So Christianity becomes the Spanish Inquisition. You know, Judaism becomes Zionism. Islam becomes ISIS. It's always antiquated. Their main prime function, first and foremost, is always to completely abolish the rights of women and children, to be treated with dignity, respect, and women to have their autonomy. You know, the first thing these extremists do is deny the rights of women and children. That gives them easy access to their prime function as a male human being, doesn't it? Okay, we are talking about, literally, we're talking about dickheads and hedonists, sadists. Britain and America have installed sadists into Iraq. You know, the kind of people who enjoy decapitating 14-year-old boys because they've been watching football. You see, we're talking about Muslim youth who are being decapitated by these extremist Muslims, who the Muslim people are facing the biggest threat from them. And we know, it's all here. I will leave you the links. Reports were cited that MI6 had cooperated with the CIA on a rat line of arms transfers from Libyan stockpiles to the Syrian rebels in 2012 after the fall of the Gaddafi regime. Okay? And we know for a fact, I've shown in other evidence, that, you know, Islamic extremists who were going around London and recruiting extremists from Britain, well, actually feeding this extremism and then recruiting the victims of it and sending them off to Pakistan, where they were being trained and then were being used to attack Iraq, to attack Libya and Syria and even parts of Egypt. And, you know, we do know about the Greater Israel Project, okay? So I'll just type this in and I'll just get the map up for you. And here it is. I've shown it before on a previous video. This is the Greater Israel Project. It is written down. We know it's a plan. We know that our government is largely controlled by Zionist forces, and, you know, people who claim that anybody who speaks out against Zionism is anti-Semitic, well, all I can say is that if are people who speak out against the Ku Klux Klan anti-Christian, okay? And I am actually supporting Jewish people by speaking out for our rights to live humanely and for our rights to live lawfully, okay? Which naturally, just by doing that, is in direct opposition to Zionism, that Jesus himself stood against that as well, just by the very fact that he supported people's human rights. He, by definition, was thus standing against Zionism. In those days they didn't call themselves Zionists, but it's the same consciousness, that usurer consciousness, okay? It'll call itself a Zionist, it'll call itself, you know, a Muslim or a Christian, whatever suits it, in order to convince the people to accept them. And, you know, from there on in, they will gain power because they are extremists, and one madman with a gun can control 1,000 people. And the only way to stop that madman is for the 1,000 people to unite. And yes, some of us will have to risk losing our lives in order to save the next generation from this madness, because if it takes hold, you know, that's it. Humanity is doomed. These people are not fit to rule or lead. They have no intelligence, and they will ultimately destroy not just the people of our planet, but the planet, the life of the planet itself, and ultimately even themselves. That is their fate, okay? So, you know, we have to actually protect these people from their own madness as well. As Jesus said, love thine enemy. And so, you know, yes, we are protecting our enemy by actually not permitting them to just run amok with their madness. And this is why it is so important that the MPs of British Parliament, you know, like Jeremy Corbyn, you lose your wishy-washy approach now. You report them to the Home Office, you report them to the police, you demand that Theresa May is arrested, faces charges of conspiracy to commit war crimes, conspiracy to participate perhaps with false flag events, because, you know, how can a Prime Minister with no evidence whatsoever suddenly launch attacks against Syria, claiming that Assad has been using chemical weapons, when we've got the absolute facts and evidence, a wealth of it, leaving us in no shadow of a doubt that ISIS are the ones that are creating and using these chemical weapons, when we know without a shadow of a doubt that Western intelligence has been involved in creating ISIS and funding and arming and training it in the first place, okay? When we know that our government is heavily influenced, in fact the whole world, by the people who control the world banking system, the Zionists, do have this crazy project of the Greater Israel. These are people who are prepared to bomb thousands of Palestinian people and just kill them. They're the kind of people who are willing to, you know, arrest and imprison children for throwing a stone at a tank that has, you know, that is taking over their homes, evicting them from their homes. This just cannot go on. This is a crime. Acceptance of one crime is leading to acceptance of ever greater crimes. And I'm very sorry, Jeremy Corbyn. Please, man, please get a backbone. Please, please. Imagine this is your family that's in Syria that has now been impacted by these bombs that Theresa May illegally, okay, it's, you know, we forget phrases like legally questionable. It's not legally questionable, it's actually criminal what she's done, a criminal abuse of power, you know. And this is a woman that has formed an alliance with who, you know, a violent loyalist paramilitary group. And, you know, I've shared this before in a previous video. This is the kind of thing that they do. That's who Theresa May formed her government with. Apparently British MPs weren't good enough for her coalition. Of course they weren't good enough, because what does she need? She needs extremists to support her extremist organisations that she supports and her extremist plans that actually are crazy. They are crazy. She is a crazy, mad person, and she needs to be arrested and investigated. The whole of this Tory government now and the UDA need to be investigated, and especially in relation to this so-called chemical attack from Russia, which we strongly suspect is an organised false flag event specifically to assist Britain's rhetoric against Russia, because Russia has stood in the way of ISIS taking control of Syria. Russia has stood by Assad and the Syrian people against ISIS, and so Britain started this Cold War against Russia, and immediately after that now they're launching an attack against Syria on the strength of a pack of lies. Because, as I say, the evidence is there. The evidence is there. ISIS. It's ISIS with the chemical weapons. It's ISIS that are doing this. We know it. We've got the history of it. Okay? We've got the history of our governments, our intelligence. I've showed you the information in my previous videos, especially my recent ones. I've shown the evidence without a shadow of a doubt. MI6, MI5, CIA, you know, Mossad, they've all been involved in recruiting, funding and training and arming ISIS. And how are these people getting hold, you know, creating chemical weapons in Iraq, and yet suddenly Britain suddenly decides to bomb ISIS? This is a criminal abuse of power. It puts the British people, the British public at risk, because don't forget, Britain more or less now is declaring war against Russia, a nuclear superpower, okay, and this puts not just the British, not just the Syrian people at risk, it puts the British people at risk, the Russian people at risk, it puts our whole planet at risk here. And why are they doing this? Why are they doing it? Now, I've explained to Jeremy Corbyn that yes, you need to grow a backbone, and you need now the Labour Party and all the people sitting on the bench of the opposition to get up and walk out of Parliament and go to the Metropolitan Police and demand that Theresa May and her government are arrested. And we know also that they've got very dubious connections too with the people of Cambridge Analytica and all their behind the scenes cohorts. Okay, now for the British people who unfortunately I wasn't able to attend the demo in London due to oppressions against myself and other people at the moment because of the work that we do on behalf of child rights. So but what everybody can do, because we know that these demonstrations don't achieve anything. Over nearly 2 million of us marched to stop the war in Iraq, you know, against the war in Iraq. We were totally ignored. And so, you know, the demonstrations are a good show of strength, but at the end of the day, this is what people need to do. I'll leave you the link. You get onto it, write to them. You just put in your postcode, okay, and it'll go to a page that'll show you a list of MPs and lords and whatever. You will find your MP, you click on that, you write to them, you send it, a confirmation email will be sent into your email account. You just click on the link and that's it, bang, your email's been sent to your MP. Now, when 3,000 constituents contact an MP about a particular issue, that MP is duty bound to discuss it in Parliament. And I'll tell you now, this organisation, Write to Them, do keep a check on MPs' responses to your email. So this is a much better way of contacting your MP than actually writing them a letter, because it's monitored, it's being monitored, that MPs have received these messages and Write to Them has a record of them. So it is beholden now upon the British public, if you are of care and conscience and a lawful person and do consider yourself, you know, a Christian or a compassionate person or a Muslim, you know, whatever faith you have or don't have, at least you have a faith in our human rights and that our government behaves lawfully and doesn't put people at risk, British people and children in other countries. Okay, so you write to your MP if you feel as I do that this government is a criminal government and it actually is treasonous, needs to be removed from power, needs to be arrested and investigated now. If you agree with that, then write to them, write to your MP, put your postcode in, find your MP. I will leave you all the links that I've left, that I've showed it in this video. Copy those links, include them in your email to your MP and say this is a criminal act because there is no evidence to prove that Assad has used chemical weapons, but instead here we have a wealth of evidence provided by top USA intelligence officials and also independent sources that ISIS is the one that's using the chemical weapons, and that Britain now is actually taking part in a military exercise that will allow the very people who have been making and using the chemical weapons into Syria to gain greater control. And, you know, there is the suspicion that this false flag nerve gas thing that's happened in Britain recently, it was a false flag planned and orchestrated by agents of tyranny within government, okay, and the Tory party were there immediately with their narrative, weren't they? Before any information really had come through, straight away they were pointing the finger at Russia, because Russia, why do they want hostility with Russia? They need some justification for it, because Russia has stood by Assad and helped actually to defeat ISIS taking control of Syria. So now it looks like Britain and America have decided to, you know, back their little monster that they've created and funded, okay, and, you know, through this rhetoric that Assad has been using chemical weapons, and actually Russia is with him because they use chemical weapons as well. They use chemical weapons to kill British citizens. Okay, this is the narrative. It's a pack of lies. It's a tissue of lies. It's a very flimsy facade for absolute tyranny, because that is what is happening. Absolute tyranny. And it is up to you, the British people, if you care about your children, if you care about the next generation, if you care about humanity, if you care about the children of Syria and the people of Syria, okay, if you care about the people of Iraq, if you really care about life and humanity, and you do believe that our human rights are sacred, no matter what colour we are, no matter what religion, no matter what nationality or gender or age, that we have human rights, then we need now to stand up for this. This is what men like my grandfather gave their lives for. This is what women like my grandmother suffered through 2 world wars for, okay? And was to establish our human rights, and for us not to get involved in dangerous criminal actions, wars for criminal design, criminal by design, for criminal purpose. And this is very, very serious. This is high treason. We're talking about an absolute blatant abuse of our military, putting British soldiers' lives at risk as well, putting the lives of the British, lives and welfare of the British people at risk, from a government that has already killed thousands of its own citizens with economic terrorism. And, you know, the world has just sat by and watched that happen. Nobody came to rescue Britain's disabled and sick people, okay? Nobody's come to rescue Britain's overworked, underpaid NHS staff and police, and so many professional people who are being driven to suicide because of the pressures of their work, because of austerity. Working British people being on 0-hour contracts, being forced to queue up at food banks. Okay, this is outrageous. This is a crime. It's a crime. Now, I have shared this video. I'm writing to my MP today. I'll be sharing all the links that I've shared here, and explaining to her that as my MP, my representative, I would like her to stand up in Parliament and to explain that this government is a criminal government. I would like any sane, compassionate people on the Tory benches to recognise what's going on and the risks here. You know, who are you really aligned with? Are you aligned first with the Tory party and Theresa May, or are you aligned with your status as a British citizen, as a law-abiding, civilised British citizen? You know, where does your allegiance as a human being truly stand here? And I'm sorry, Jeremy Corbyn, we don't want phrases like legally questionable. We need now for people in authority to listen to the facts, to take note of the facts as I've shared here, as is known commonly and officially identified facts. Look at the facts the government has given us. They have given us no facts whatsoever to support their rhetoric or their actions. They have given us supposition. Okay, supposition, it seems, is enough to, you know, expel 23 Russian diplomats, to engage in a cyber attack against Russia, to, you know, start building up the British troops on the Ukraine borders, and now launching airstrikes against Syria on the strength of information that is the total opposite of the facts that we know, of the known and officially established facts. Theresa May, has now bombed Syria on apparent intelligence that actually flies in the face of the actual facts from intelligence. That chemical weapons are being used in Syria, but obviously not according to the evidence, as I've just shown, not by Assad, but by ISIS. And so Britain is now blaming ISIS for these chemical attacks. Is blaming Assad for these chemical attacks, and now wants to help ISIS to get its foothold in Syria, as it's helped it get into Iraq, as it's helped it take control of Libya. Who is ISIS really working for? You know, as I've explained with the Greater Israel Project, we can't keep putting all these things, all these facts on the conspiracy theory shelf. Okay, we just can't do that. We cannot afford it. We're talking about our children's future here. We're talking about the life of our planet. We're talking about whether or not, which is going to get born here. Are we going to get born into our universal intelligence, or are we going to, you know, give up on that and just stick by insanity because, you know, it keeps the few in comfort in the here and now? But what is left for the children? What is left for the children? We need a sane, balanced consciousness governing our nations, in every nation. We need sanity. We need law. We need justice. We need child protection. These are the things that we need. These are the things that make life joyful. When we live with compassion and by facts and knowledge, not by the supposition, and actually, for what purpose except to fulfill evil agendas and give freedom to sadists and rapists and murderers under the guise of ISIS, you know, Islamic extremism. And, you know, this is about stopping socialism. The Middle Eastern nations were very socialist nations. They had formed unions, and time and again, all the people they've elected into power that serve their interests have been usurped, pushed out of power, replaced with a despot. We know that Iraq was being controlled by Saddam for a long time, until suddenly it's like, yeah, let's get rid of him, and, you know, let's install ISIS, and then it's a free-for-all. And now they're using ISIS to commit acts that then justify attacking innocent people, to attacking a true democracy that people have voted, you know, have got President Assad. I mean, I'm not saying the guy's an angel, or any world leaders angels right now, but at the end of the day, he is not ISIS, and he has not used chemical weapons against his people. The same as Saddam Hussein had no weapons of mass destruction. He did not have any chemical weapons, but, you know, here we go, thanks to the coalition. It isn't May, is it? It's not that they may be forming a chemical weapons. It is the fact that they have and they are using those weapons. That is the fact of it. And so, as I say, people of Britain, if you love your children, if you love the children of this planet, you will write to your MP. You will send them the facts as I've shared here, and all you need to do is copy and paste the links and explain to your MP, no uncertain terms, please arrest Theresa May. She is operating on the strength of lies. She's committing a war crime now, and this time it's absolutely blatant. We're in no doubt whatsoever that these chemical attacks have been created, you know, the chemical weapons have been created and employed by ISIS, and now Britain has blatantly operated, used its military to protect ISIS and to actually allow an agent, you know, a group that uses chemical weapons is actually facilitating their rise to power. That is what Britain is doing. On the strength of lies, on the strength of false flag attacks. That is what Britain is doing. That is a total reversal of the law. And we have the evidence to prove it. So, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, very sorry. Mr. Wishy-Washy, stop being Mr. Wishy-Washy. The people of Britain, stop being wishy-washy. Stop being so casual about and blasé about this, of what's going on. Do not think that holding a placard outside of Parliament is enough. It is not. We need to write. We need to pick up our swords, our pens. You know, the pen is mightier than the sword. We need to bombard our MPs now with the voice of sanity, the voice of truth, the voice of facts, reason, compassion. We need this government arresting Theresa May. Who knows, perhaps she really does need psychiatric help. But I tell you now, Britain has just committed, this government has, with its horrible coalition, you know, the UDA, they have participated now in a terrorist action against the people of Syria on behalf of facilitating the rise to power of ISIS, who do make and use chemical weapons, okay? And it is a known fact. It is a known fact. It is a known fact. These people have been using chemical weapons. London-based intelligence. What? Theresa May's got no connection. Oh, does she not realise what was published on November the 21st, 2016? I'm sorry. This is outrageous. I know this is a bit of a long video, but seriously, people, what can I say? You know, my heart is with the innocent people that are facing, that are suffering directly because of our government that wasn't even voted in by us, that is only in because they've got together with this extremist paramilitary coalition. And look at the things that they're doing. Is it any surprise? This is tyranny. It's tyranny, and we have a duty. Every British citizen has a moral and ethical and lawful duty to rise up against it, to speak out. I'm not saying, you know, we want riots on the streets. Definitely not. No. Write to your MP. Inundate your MP. Everybody spread the word. Spread the word. Share the link. Write to them. Encourage all your family, your friends, everybody. Right. It is time now to remove these people from power, because they think they can get a pen and sign a piece of paper and suddenly thousands of British citizens, sick and disabled, are left destitute and homeless, okay, on the stroke of a pen. Well, let's pick up our pens and let's make this Tory government destitute and homeless.